Budget, Chairperson, takes place within a broader context of no confidence in the police. The people of Jukulane, the people of Nanda, the people of Delft live under constant fear of well-known criminal gangs, well-known individuals that are doing despicable acts of violence. And at the center of the crime-ridden society in South Africa are two important things that the APP does not address, with its appropriation of about 113 billion for SEPs alone. One is the fact that your strategy is not actually committed to prevention of crime. You want to fight crime after it has happened. There is no well-articulated idea of how you are going to stop the murder rate, which is amongst the highest in the world. In the last financial year,
the system that operates within SAPS, they want to deal with crime once it has happened. That's when they'll start to say, you know what, we have to go and deal with this. We have to go and deal with this. So you have to understand that criminals are very strategic. So the moment you are focusing on certain crimes, they'll go ahead and do other crimes. They will shift the focus and go and perform other crimes because you are not you don't have a strategy to prevent crime, but you want to focus on certain crimes once they have taken place. So I agree with him. So when it comes to a service delivery in the police, they have to prevent it. You have to come up with a strategy that will make it difficult for criminals to do as they please.
Alone, about 27,500 people were killed, murdered. If you want to understand the dramatic effects of that, in Gaza, there is an ongoing genocide with military bombardment of buildings and people. In the same period, so to speak, since the war started, 38,000 people were casualties. 27,500 in South Africa under so-called peace conditions. In Gaza, where there is a war and genocide, 38,000. You have lost the war against crime. Of the top 30 police stations, if you look at them over the last 20 years, they repeat themselves. You know where murder is taking place. So it means you need a preventative strategy. All those police stations are known coming from only 4 provinces, KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, Eastern Cape, and the Western Cape. There is no strategy here to address that. Same as rape and gender-based violence. Over 42,000 rapes in the last financial year alone. The police stations are the same. The top police stations are well-known police stations, Sishio, Umlazi, Delft. You know where these activities are taking place. They are related to shebeens. They are related to places that are not safe in the streets, in the parks. Your deployment of the budget, your deployment of personnel should be preventative of these crimes. There is kidnapping on the rise. Even members of parliament in this chamber these days get kidnapped. Gangs and drugs, all the drug lords or the drug dealers are known. Only the police claim ignorance. We know the houses in Orange Farm. We know the houses in Khayelitsha that are selling nyaupe.
I agree with him as well here when it comes to this thing of police not like making their investigations to the fullest. Doesn't mean they have to go deep, because people in the society or people in the community, they know these people. And there are people who are like selling drugs, nyaupe, and other things publicly. And many people know them, and even police know them. And there are people who are untouchable. In other words, if you are living in a country whereby there are people who are untouchable, even if you report them to certain police stations, they'll tell you to go home and relax, or they'll tell you that they'll do some investigations and etc. And to find out that they won't do anything at all. That's a painful thing. So we are living in that situation. That is why EFF or Dr. Mbuseni Ndlozi is against this budget. So in other words, the budget that is associated with SAPS, it has to be increased so that the police force has that potential or that capability to deal with crime. And again, it's not only about the budget, but it's also about the loyalty. In other words, the police officers should be loyal to the government, should be loyal to the people on the ground, because these days sometimes when you report crime, it's like you are wasting your time. It's like sometimes when something happens, burglary and all those things, in other words, you become reluctant to report that case to the police, because you know that in most cases they will say we'll investigate. Sometimes other people are afraid to even report to the police because some of these people have connection with the criminals. Some people are even afraid to report these crimes for the sake of their lives.
Only the police don't know. Only the police claim ignorance. The gangsters are embedded with the police. In fact, some of the drugs in our country are transported with police vans because police vans don't get to be searched. And that's another key problem of the failure of crime in this country, is the embeddedness of the police service. There is no strategy in here to disarticulate police up to the top generals that are working with criminals.
I always say when it comes to drugs, you can deal with drugs instantly. In other words, you can do away with drugs immediately. But it's a system. When it comes to drugs, this is where the system goes deeper. This is where the system becomes strong, because there's no way you have to always deal with this problem of drugs, you have to deal with this problem of drugs once and for all. But why is not happening is because there are many people who are involved in this thing of drugs.
Are working with drug laws, that are on the payrolls of drug laws. Crime intelligence in your budget account for about 4%. You know why? Because you're not planning to prevent crime. There should be an increase in relation to the crime intelligence budget, because you need to produce intelligence product, predict crime, and be able to combat it, including GBV. You must have informants within families. You must put them on the payroll who are going to report on the uncles, the fathers that are raping children and women, that are beating women inside households. There are a lot of feared and known families in this country. Police fear them. Politicians don't talk about them. They are known, and some of them run assassination networks. A criminal can leave a maximum security prison in South Africa, go kill somebody, be paid, and go back to prison. There is no strategy in this APP to speak to that. The embeddedness of the correctional service, the SAPS, crime intelligence in the criminal activities in this country. The reason why we've got the dramatic levels of crime is because the police themselves are part of the criminals.
I think when it comes to gender-based violence, they have to deal with the root of the problem. This is not necessarily the problem of SAPS, but SAPS has to deal with these problems effectively, so that when people report these incidences or these crimes or these cases, so that they can be handled effectively without any error or without any problem. But there are other departments that should work hand in hand with the SAPS. For an example, social department has to work hand in hand with SAPS in order to deal with gender-based violence. My perception is that there are many things that we have to deal with when it comes to this gender-based violence issue. Yes, is there. We have to focus on education. We have to focus on many other things. And I think social department can deal with these issues effectively.
In Johannesburg, we are in control of the MPD. The SEPs don't support the work of GMPD. If you get a person now with drugs, you hand them over to those dilapidated police stations of yours. You meet them on the other street, the same people. When you go ask them, we've just handed you criminals with drugs on their hands, you find that now it's baking powder. Because the police stations of South Africa under your watch are embedded in criminal activities. We can't support this budget. You have failed, and you are still going to fail because you are not planning to prevent crime, number one. Number two, the entire police force needs to be disarticulated from being embedded with criminals. We can't support this budget, and we call on our people to reject it.
The other thing that I just want to say is that they need to employ police officers who are loyal to the state, who are loyal to the citizens of South Africa. And again, they have to pay them very well as well, because these people bribe them. But I cannot say bribery is the only problem. But again, we need to employ people who are loyal, and then at the same time, they have to be paid effectively. So if we want the budget of SAPS to be increased, we should also consider the salaries of the police officers. And again, they have to be trained to be loyal. They have to be trained to love themselves.